They say freedom is a choice. I used to believe that. I truly did. But what if freedom isn't about what you choose to do, but what you choose to see? My name is Sarah. For years, I chased a hollow kind of peace, a fleeting comfort found in the bitter taste of a pill, the rush of a needle. I thought I knew what rock bottom looked like, but I was wrong. The real bottom, the true revelation, was something far beyond anything I could have imagined. A truth Jesus himself laid bare. Stick with me. This isn't just my story. It might be yours too. Life before was a blurred tapestry. My apartment, a small cluttered space, always carried the faint metallic tang of stale smoke and desperation. The worn floral sofa, a silent witness to countless nights, seemed to sag deeper with each passing week. Mornings were a ritual of evasion, the dull ache in my joints, a constant companion, demanding its due. I'd shuffle to the kitchen, the chipped ceramic mug a familiar weight in my hand, and pretend the world outside, the world of consequences and clear skies, simply didn't exist. I'd hear the distant rumble of the city bus, a sound of lives moving forward. And I'd just turn up the TV. That low, persistent hum from the old refrigerator was the only constant sound in my life. It was a monotonous rhythm, a quiet thrumming that masked the real discomfort, a gnawing, icy knot in my stomach that screamed waste. I pushed it down, always. Then the clock stopped. Not just any clock, but the antique mantel clock, a gift from my grandmother. Its steady tick-tock was usually the only thing breaking the silence when the TV was off. One Tuesday, I remember the pale morning light barely filtering through the blinds. I glanced up. The hands were frozen at 3:17. I tapped the glass. Nothing. A tiny, insignificant detail, I told myself. A dead battery. But a prickle of unease, cold and sharp, traced its way up my spine. It was a small thing, but it felt wrong. Like a single misplaced piece in an otherwise perfectly chaotic puzzle. The next day the feeling sharpened. A strange, insistent ringing started in my left ear. A high-pitched whine that wouldn't fade. It wasn't loud, not at first, but it was there. Persistent. Like a forgotten alarm going off somewhere deep inside my head. My hands felt cold, clammy, even though the air in the apartment was warm and thick. A peculiar pressure began to build behind my eyes, a dull, throbbing weight that made every blink feel like an effort. My throat felt dry, sandpaper rough, even after a full glass of water. I started to feel a profound sense of dread, a chilling certainty that something was coming, something big. If this cut to your core, if you've ever felt that kind of unexplained dread, type abre meus ojos in the comments. The edges of my reality began to blur. The familiar lines of my apartment walls seemed to soften, to waver. Sounds around me became muffled, distant, as if I were underwater. The air grew heavy, thick and still, pressing down on me. I tried to focus on the chipped paint on the ceiling, the dust motes dancing in the weak sunlight, but my vision kept swimming. Time itself felt elastic, stretching out endlessly between one breath and the next, then snapping back, too fast, too sudden. I felt a strange detachment, like watching myself from across the room. I was here, but also I was not. The ringing in my ear intensified. A piercing shriek that threatened to split my skull. My chest grew tight. I couldn't breathe. My knees buckled. And then the world went silent. A silence that wasn't empty, but full. A silence that roared. The silence roared. Then it cracked. A dry, searing heat enveloped me. Not like a summer day, but a heat that came from within everything. It pressed against my skin, suffocating. My lungs burned with each breath, tasting like ash and something metallic, like old blood. The air itself felt thick, Not humid, but heavy, as if it had weight. It smelled of decay, a cloying sweetness mixed with the sharp tang of sulfur. I couldn't see clearly. The light was dim, an oppressive, reddish-brown haze that made everything appear distorted, blurry at the edges. My eyes strained, trying to pierce through the gloom. The ground beneath my feet was no longer my apartment floor. It was rough, uneven, a gritty texture that scraped against my bare soles. A low, persistent moan vibrated through the very air. Not a human sound, but a deep, guttural thrumming, like a distant, dying machine. I felt a sudden, profound loneliness, colder than any winter night. A chill that no heat could touch. This place was swallowing me whole. As my eyes adjusted to the dim, reddish light, shapes began to emerge from the haze. Not the familiar clutter of my life, but something else entirely. Figures. Hundreds, maybe thousands, moving with a slow, aimless shuffle. They were like ghosts, yet solid. Their skin had a pallid ashen quality, and their eyes, when I could glimpse them, held a vacant, desperate stare. The air grew heavier, thick with the stench of regret, a bitterness that made my stomach churn. I saw a man, once a beloved communicator, his face etched with a perpetual frown, endlessly polishing a tarnished silver trophy. He held it close, whispering to it, oblivious to the world. His hands, though, they were covered in a thin black film that wouldn't wash off. It was the residue of empty praise, I thought, the weight of his own self-importance. If you believe consciousness continues, write "I believe" in the comments now. I watched a woman, a venerated artist, her fingers stained with what looked like dried paint, but it glittered with a strange metallic sheen. She was meticulously arranging countless tiny broken mirrors, each reflecting only a distorted, fractured image of herself. Her lips moved, murmuring about her own genius, her own unparalleled vision, never looking up, never seeing the others around her. Her obsession, her pride, was a suffocating shroud. The heat intensified, a dry, burning sensation that seemed to wick away all moisture from my body. My throat felt like sandpaper. I yearned for a single drop of water, but there was none. Only this pervasive, oppressive dryness. Then I saw a leader, once confident and charismatic, now endlessly trying to build a tower of shifting sand. Each grain represented a broken promise, a word spoken in deceit. He'd stack them, one by one, only for the entire structure to crumble, sending a fine, gritty dust into the air that stunned my eyes. He'd rebuild, his brow furrowed, a look of desperate denial on his face, convinced that this time it would hold. His efforts were futile, his lies made manifest, a constant, crushing weight. I felt the grit on my own skin, a phantom texture, rough and irritating. The air was thick with the silent screams of unfulfilled potential, of lives twisted by self-deception. I started to notice a pattern, a chilling thread running through this desolate landscape. Everyone was trapped, not by chains, but by their own choices, their own idols. The things they chased in life, the things they put before all else, were now their eternal burdens. The trophy, the mirrors, the shifting sand, they were micro-rewards, but twisted. My heart hammered against my ribs. A cold sweat, despite the heat, trickled down my back. This wasn't just a place of punishment. It was a place of eternal consequence. The air vibrated with a low, mournful hum, a collective sigh of endless regret. It tasted like bitter iron. I saw another figure, a young man, his eyes wide and vacant, endlessly reaching for an invisible syringe. His hands trembled, his body convulsing slightly, mimicking the desperate dance of addiction. But there was no drug, no relief. Only the phantom craving, the insatiable hunger that gnawed at his very soul. He was trapped in the loop of his own addiction, a perpetual state of longing without fulfillment. The smell of stale smoke, the same metallic tang from my apartment, wafted through the heavy air, catching in my throat. It was a familiar scent, a chilling reminder of my own past, my choices. The realization hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just about them. This was about me. If you need to break free from self-deception, write Livrami Duengano. The ground beneath me felt like a cold, hard stone, despite the searing heat all around. The light, though dim, seemed to focus, pulling my gaze towards another scene. A woman, her face gaunt, repeatedly counted a handful of tarnished coins, her fingers stained green with their oxidation. She clutched them fiercely, yet her eyes held no joy, only a deep, bottomless fear of losing them. Her wealth, her security, had become her prison. Her constant, anxious counting was a rhythmic, unsettling click, click, click that echoed in the oppressive silence. This wasn't a place of fire and brimstone in the way I'd imagined. It was worse. It was a mirror, a revelation of the self, a pattern interrupt. What if this was the true hell? Not just pain, but the endless, inescapable reflection of your own choices. The desperation of these souls was palpable, a heavy cloak that settled on my shoulders. I felt their emptiness, their unfulfilled desires, their self-imposed suffering. The air grew thick with a sense of futility, a crushing despair that made it hard to breathe. My own chest tightened, a familiar pressure returning. But this time it wasn't fear of the unknown. It was a recognition, a chilling, undeniable recognition of the paths I had walked, the choices I had made, the idols I had served. The metallic tang of desperation was stronger now, mixed with the acrid scent of burnt ambition. I shivered, a deep tremor that ran through my bones, even in that oppressive heat. This place wasn't just showing me others. It was preparing me for a truth I wasn't ready to face. The chilling recognition settled deep in my bones. Every step, every tremor through that gritty ground echoed my own journey. This wasn't some distant, abstract judgment. It was deeply personal, a revelation designed just for me. The air, thick with the scent of burnt ambition and metallic regret, now seemed to press harder, suffocating me with its weight. My heart hammered, a frantic drum against my ribs, each beat a stark reminder of the choices that had led me here. I felt a profound, aching vulnerability, exposed in a way I'd never known. My skin crawled with a phantom itch, the ghost of 1,000 desperate cravings. Then, a shift. The dim, reddish haze seemed to coalesce, not into a shape, but into a presence. It was a cold that cut through the searing heat, a silence that swallowed the mournful hum of despair. It wasn't a voice I heard with my ears, but a whisper that echoed directly in the hollow spaces of my mind, chilling me to the core. You thought you were strong, didn't you, Sarah? The thought wasn't mine. It was a sneering, mocking insinuation, dripping with a bitterness that tasted like bile in my mouth. It felt ancient, predatory. I shivered, my teeth chattering The words were a venomous caress, a cruel reminder of the endless, empty pursuit that had defined my life. I could almost feel its breath, cold and stale, on the back of my neck. It was trying to break me, to strip away even the pretense of hope. It wanted me to believe that this was my deserved end, that there was no escape from the loop of my own making. If you're with me this far, if this resonates, say, "The truth sets free," in the comments below. I squeezed my eyes shut, but the presence only intensified. The smell of stale smoke, the one that clung to my apartment and to the young man, reaching for an invisible syringe, became overwhelming. It filled my lungs, burning, making me cough, a dry, rasping sound that felt alien in that profound silence. You craved the escape. You craved the numbness. But the numbness only led to more pain, didn't it? It wasn't a question seeking an answer, but a statement meant to crush. The ground felt colder, sharper, digging into my bare feet, a constant physical discomfort mirroring the torment in my mind. I tried to push back, to find a fragment of defiance. But my will felt like wet paper. The fear was a living thing, a cold knot in my gut, twisting tighter with each insidious whisper. Look at them, Sarah. The presence gestured, though I saw no hand, only felt the pull of its malicious will. They all wanted something, something to fill the void, just like you. My gaze was drawn back to the figures in the haze, the communicator polishing his trophy, the artist with her broken mirrors, the leader with his crumbling sand. Their silent despair now felt like a chorus, each note a reflection of my own. And then I saw it, not an external figure, but a fragment of my own past, materialized in that wretched place. It was my old syringe, not the real thing, but a spectral, shimmering version, suspended in the reddish gloom right before my eyes. Its needle, impossibly long and thin, glinted with a faint, malevolent light. It wasn't just a tool of addiction. It was the symbol of my surrender, the instrument of my escape. It pulsed with a sickening, almost magnetic pull. I could feel the phantom pressure of my thumb on the plunger, the familiar sting as the needle pierced my skin. The memory was so vivid, so visceral. It was like reliving it. My stomach lurched. This was the true horror. This was the revelation I wasn't ready for. The presence, sensing my utter despair, tightened its grip. You chose this, over and over. Did you ever think of the cost? The question wasn't about money or reputation. It was about my soul. The air grew heavy, with the sweet, cloying scent of decaying flowers, a stark contrast to the sulfur and smoke, yet equally suffocating. It smelled of forgotten beauty, of life wasted. My own hands, I noticed, felt clammy and trembled, mirroring the young man's desperate reach. I was him. He was me. My gaze was locked on that spectral syringe, the ultimate mirror. It wasn't just accusing me. It was defining me. It was everything I had been, everything I had run from, everything I had become. The cold, metallic tang of it was in my mouth, burning my tongue. The shame was a physical weight, pressing down on my chest, making it impossible to breathe. This was my internal hell, made real. The realization was a devastating blow, a truth that shattered every last defense I had built. If this touched something in you, if you need to face a difficult truth, right now, I want the truth. My gaze was locked on that spectral syringe, the ultimate mirror. It wasn't just accusing me. It was defining me. It was everything I had been, everything I had run from, everything I had become. The cold, metallic tang of it was in my mouth, burning my tongue. The shame was a physical weight pressing down on my chest, making it impossible to breathe. This was my internal hell, made real. The realization was a devastating blow, a truth that shattered every last defense I had built. If this touched something in you, if you need to face a difficult truth, right now, I want the truth. The mocking presence pulsed around me, a silent, chilling laughter echoing in the void where my hope once lived. Look at your masterpiece, Sarah. Your life's work. It was a sneer, a brutal twisting of reality. The syringe, still suspended before me, seemed to grow, its needle stretching, impossibly sharp, reflecting the dim reddish light like a bloodied mirror. I could feel the phantom burn in my veins, the familiar, desperate craving rising up, even here, in this place of ultimate consequence. My hands shook, not with cold, but with a deep internal tremor that vibrated through my very bones. The air, already thick with the scent of regret and sulfur, now felt like a physical hand squeezing my throat. I couldn't escape it. I couldn't escape myself. I closed my eyes again, a futile attempt to block out the horrifying truth. But the image of the syringe burned behind my eyelids. The presence was relentless, its unseen tendrils coiling around my spirit. You chose the easy way. You chose the dark. And now the dark has chosen you. The words were a bitter poison, each one eroding a piece of what little remained of my will. I felt utterly exposed, stripped bare of all pretense. The shame was a burning brand on my soul, hotter than any fire, heavier than any chain. I was drowning, not in water, but in the crushing weight of my own failures. The low, mournful hum of the lost souls around me seemed to intensify, a symphony of despair. It was the sound of 1,000 wasted chances. My body felt heavy, rooted to the gritty ground, unable to move, unable to fight. I was trapped, not by external force, but by the relentless revelation of my own making. The metallic taste in my mouth was unbearable, like sucking on old pennies. A cold sweat plastered my hair to my forehead, a stark contrast to the searing heat that still permeated everything. I wanted to scream, but no sound would come, only a dry, rasping gasp. This was the end, the absolute, undeniable end of everything I thought I was. The mocking presence seemed to swell, its victory palpable, its coldness seeping into every fiber of my being. Then, a flicker, a light, not the oppressive reddish haze, but a pure, impossibly gentle light. Cutting through the gloom like a surgeon's blade. It didn't blind, it clarified. It didn't burn, it warmed, a warmth that started deep in my chest and spread outwards, pushing back the internal cold that had gripped me. The mocking presence recoiled, a sudden sharp hiss that was more felt than heard, dissolving like smoke in a strong wind. The spectral syringe, which had seemed so solid, wavered, then faded, leaving behind only a faint, sweet scent, like rain on dry earth. My eyes, still blurred with tears and dread, opened wider. The air shifted. The sulphurous stench receded, replaced by an aroma I couldn't quite place. Something clean, like fresh linen, mixed with the faint, sweet scent of blooming jasmine. The mournful hum of despair softened, replaced by a profound, resonant silence, deeper and more peaceful than any I had ever known. And then a voice. Not a whisper in my mind, but a sound that vibrated through the very air, through my very bones. It was rich, deep, yet infinitely tender. It spoke my name, Sarah. The sound of my name, spoken with such tender authority, was a shock. It was a lifeline. My knees, which had been locked in despair, buckled again. But this time I fell forward, not down, onto the rough ground. The voice continued, its words like living water, washing over the parched landscape of my soul. It wasn't accusatory, not like the other presence. It was a truth, spoken with a love that felt boundless. You pursued false comfort. You chose the chains you now wear. Each word was a precise, gentle hammer blow, shattering the lies I had built around myself. My heart ached, but it was a different kind of ache, a cleansing pain. Then came the words that reordered everything, shattering the illusions, offering a path I hadn't dared to dream of. They were simple, yet carried the weight of the universe. But my grace is greater. Surrender your burden. The light intensified, not painfully, but with an embracing warmth that melted the icy knot in my stomach. The ground beneath me, though still rough, no longer felt like a cold stone. It felt like a foundation. This was the ultimate revelation. If you've ever felt this calling, this truth reaching out, say, Abre meus ojos in the comments. I understood. In that instant, every choice, every mistake, every moment of self-deception became crystal clear. The verdict wasn't just on my actions, but on my heart, on the idols I had served. And yet, there was no condemnation in the voice, only an invitation, a way out. I felt a sudden, profound release, like a tightly wound spring, finally letting go. A sob tore from my throat, raw and unrestrained, not of despair, but of a sorrow so deep it felt like joy. It was the sorrow of seeing my brokenness and the liberating joy of knowing I didn't have to carry it anymore. I surrendered. I truly did. My whole being, every fractured piece, gave in. The clarity was excruciating, but it was also the most freeing sensation I had ever known. It hurt to see, but it healed to accept. It hurt to see, but it healed to accept. That profound clarity, that searing truth, didn't last forever in its intensity. Instead, it slowly, gently began to recede, like a tide pulling back from the shore. I felt a tremendous, almost physical pull drawing me upwards, away from the gritty ground and the lingering stench of regret. My body, which had felt so heavy, now felt strangely light, yet still anchored to something. A cold sweat, clammy and real, broke out on my skin, a sharp contrast to the internal warmth the voice had brought. My eyes fluttered open, slowly, painfully. The reddish haze was gone. The oppressive heat had vanished. Instead, I was lying on my own worn floral sofa, the familiar, slightly lumpy cushions beneath me. The dim light filtering through my blinds was no longer a symbol of evasion, but just morning. The low hum of my old refrigerator, a sound I'd barely registered for years, now filled the silence. It was a mundane sound, yet it felt like a miracle. My throat was still dry, but the metallic taste was gone, replaced by a lingering, faint sweetness, like that rain on dry earth. The revelation had ended, but its echoes, its truth, resonated deep within me. The first thing I did was sit up. My joints ached, a familiar protest, but this time it felt different. Not a demand for oblivion, but a simple, physical reminder of my body, my life. I walked to the kitchen, the chipped ceramic mug still waiting. But instead of the usual ritual, I filled it with water. Cold, clear, clean water. It tasted like freedom, like a promise. That persistent ringing in my ear, the one that had signaled the shift, had vanished. The mantel clock, though, it was still frozen at 3:17. A small detail almost overlooked, but it wasn't a sign of dread anymore. It was a fixed point, a marker of where my old life had stopped and a new one began. That day was a blur of small, deliberate choices. I started by cleaning, not just tidying, but scrubbing, airing out the stale smoke, letting the cool morning breeze chase away the lingering scent of desperation. It felt like I was cleaning my soul, one dusty corner at a time. The first verifiable change? My routine. No more shuffling through the day. There was a purpose, a new rhythm. I made a phone call, a difficult one, to my sister, who I hadn't spoken to in years, pushing her away with my choices. Her voice, hesitant at first, was a micro-reward, a fragile step towards rebuilding. That was the second change, reaching out, mending bridges. The third change was immediate and profound, my consumption. The phantom cravings were still there, a whisper in the back of my mind, but they no longer held power. The voice's words, "Surrender your burden," echoed. I poured out what remained, a bitter stream down the drain. It was hard. It was agonizing. But for the first time, I felt a strength that wasn't borrowed from a chemical. It was mine. If you've ever felt that kind of unexplained dread or the grip of something you know isn't right, type abre meos hoyos in the comments. Then came the fourth change, community. I found a local support group, a small church on the corner I'd walked past 1,000 times. The warmth of human connection, the shared stories, they were a balm to my raw spirit. People who understood, who didn't judge, who simply offered a hand. It was a stark contrast to the desolate landscape I had witnessed, a living testament to the power of shared journey. I wasn't alone anymore. And finally, the fifth change, the most foundational, devotion. I started reading, really reading, the worn Bible my grandmother had given me years ago. Its pages, once just paper, now held living words, a direct line to the compassion and justice I had encountered. Prayer became a conversation, not just a desperate plea. The weight of the revelation still sat with me, but it was no longer crushing. It was illuminating. It showed me the path I had been on and the path I could now choose. I saw the communicator, the artist, the leader, the young man reaching for the syringe. I saw them all, not as strangers, but as reflections of choices, of burdens. And I wondered, what about you? What are the subtle chains you wear, the ones you've chosen, perhaps unknowingly? What desires, what comforts have you allowed to become your hidden idols, your shifting sands? It's easy to point fingers, to see the obvious addictions, but what about the quiet, insidious ones that twist our hearts? If you believe that consciousness continues, if you believe in the power of truth, write, I believe in the comments now. This isn't about judgment from me. It's about an invitation to look inward, to truly see. This isn't about judgment from me. It's about an invitation to look inward, to truly see. To ask yourself, what is that one thing, that subtle comfort, that hidden pride you cling to more than anything else? What is your personal spectral syringe? This journey, this revelation, wasn't just a nightmare. It was a profound mercy. It showed me the cost of my choices, the weight of my burdens, and it showed me a way out. If you felt this stirring, this quiet pull in your spirit, if you're ready to let go of what holds you captive, then make this decision now. Say it with me, in your heart or in the comments. Jesus, I choose you. Starting tomorrow, the path begins. It's not a sudden magical fix, but a series of deliberate steps rooted in that newfound clarity. First, find a quiet moment to read from a sacred text, perhaps the book of Proverbs, just one verse, letting its ancient wisdom settle. Second, choose one small attitude of gratitude, no matter how small your blessings seem, and voice it aloud. Third, renounce one thing, just one, that you know pulls you away from peace. It could be a habit, a thought pattern, a distraction. And fourth, reach out to one person, someone you trust, and share a part of your journey, even a tiny fragment. This is how we begin to build anew, brick by honest brick. My own revelation showed me the grim consequences of chasing false comfort. But some believe judgment is only for others. What about the quiet, hidden sins of the heart, the ones no one else ever sees? If this story moved you, give it a like now. And if you value unvarnished stories of transformation, subscribe to Walk With Me on Testimonies of Faith. We'll explore the unseen burdens, the quiet deceptions, and the path to true freedom, one profound truth at a time.